Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, supported by Echelon, here with Benji Naesen. He's looking overexcited. That means there's going to be trouble in this Giro d'Italia Stage 6 recap. From Grotte di Frassassi to Ascoli Piceno, they'd finished with the San Giacomo climb. Yesterday, we said it was 65-35 break to GC. It was a hard one to pick. There might be just enough to offer the GC men. The main climb in the middle of the stage was the Forca di Gualdo, 10.5K, 7%, then a ridgeline and another nasty 5K, 5% climb, not particularly steep, before a long descent, a proper descent for about 10 to 15 kilometers, and then a false slight downhill to the final climb, 15.5K, 6%, steeper, the final ramp, 5K, 7.6%, lower gradient at the start. It's more suitable for riders like Moscon, Castroviejo and Ganna. And yeah, a difficult stage for us to call. Weather conditions were a bit poor at the start as well as coverage. So Benji's going to have to, maybe Benji's in the helicopter above the race. So maybe he knows exactly what was going on when the coverage went down.
Well, I don't know the exact reasoning, but let's go into what happened in the first half of the race. First of all, I think that what was special among this parkour is that the start of it has a tiny climb, which means that a big break in form on that. And it looked like that because we had a 20-man group suddenly gone for the first 10 kilometers, including every single name that we expected to be in the breakaway today. Mater, your pick for today's stage. Mollema, my Giro preview pick for this stage. I think that we also had Cepeda, the name I mentioned as well yesterday, for example, as a large opportunity on this kind of stage. So a lot of people that have an opportunity for this stage to take it home if the break makes it. And somebody behind decided not to let that happen because Bettiol was also in the first group. Bettiol rather close in GC, I think relatively in the top 10 or something before the stage on a minute and so forth or something. And
which is really impressive.
Exactly, after that fourth stage. But this means that Israel with the Marchi was like, okay, we need to defend the Maglia Rossa on the Marchi. And that was my horrible Italian. Sorry, Italians. Anyway, they decided to pace. I felt that was questionable. I think they should have sent him in the breakaway or someone of their team in the breakaway.
We said that yesterday.
Yeah.
No, I said it as a joke, and then you're like, oh, but that actually makes sense. Yeah. If Demarchi was not wearing the Maglia Rosa, he would have been in the break today. I guarantee it. Yeah. Or someone else on that team. So, yeah, you're right, Benji, but sorry, carry on.
So they decided to pace that group down. They caught that group, and then we had a smaller breakaway getaway again. 6 riders, including Gino Mader and Mohoric. So Mohoric for Gino Mader in the stage. Jimmy Janssen for Alpecin. We also had Dario Cataldo for Movistar. Guglielmi for FDG, yes. Ravanelli for, I think, Androni. Yes, Androni. So 6 men gone. And then something odd happened. The gap opened up to a good 40-45 seconds. And we had an attack in the peloton by 2 riders, Bouchard and Mollema. And the thing about this is, if you're in the front group and you're, for example, Mohoric, then you have the galaxy brain idea of, oh God, Mollema's coming. Let's pace as hard as we can to make this comeback as hard as possible. And Mohoric, absolute genius move. Because I think that had an influence on today's stage, personally. Because he forced Mollema to chase for 25 kilometers or something behind that front group together with Bouchard. Such an intelligent move. Because Mader was not pacing in the front group, was just sitting on. He was saving his energy, making sure that while Mohoric was doing all the pacing and Mohoric was saying to everybody else, come on, dudes, start pacing, help me out here. And they actually did that. So Mollema had trouble coming back. Eventually, the footage died. And suddenly we heard, I'm not sure if it was from Race Radio or if I saw it on Twitter, but I noticed that Bouchard and Mollema were suddenly in the front group. And that was because there was a huge hailstorm at that moment. And that's why the footage went down first of all. Then it started normally raining once we had some footage here and there. Once we were going into the middle climb of the stage. So a lot of coverage issues there. Next to that, in Belgium and the Netherlands, there was an extra issue where Eurosport was having gray all over the screen, which was not related to the rain in the race, but it still happened. So we'll talk about that a bit later on after the stage, but that was definitely not entertaining, but it did cause a lot of mysterious moves because suddenly we had, them back in the front group, an image of that. We knew that was happening. A lot of rain was happening. They got their rain jackets on and so forth. Gap was roughly around, I think 5.5 minutes at that point, 5 minutes roughly. They go onto the climb, footage gone again, coverage gone again. We have no real clue what's happening, and it takes us until we get roughly towards the top of the climb with a plateau on top to see one image or a few images, and that was suddenly rain everywhere in the peloton, and the peloton was being broken up by INEOS at the front, launching it like crazy. So, yeah, we didn't see much of it, but what do you think they were trying to do?
We didn't see when they started.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's on the Velon live track or something, when INEOS completely started their action. I think we could be able to see it if Ganna puts up his file, because he was the instigator, Filippo Ganna, and it goes to show how strong he is. Getting over the Forca di Gualdo, 7% climb, 10%, 10K, 7%, and they had that rolling ridgeline and a sort of Norton Summit-esque climb, 5K is 5%, and he's just smashed it. And there was a crosswind at the same time. So we have this, it's the thumbnail of this podcast on YouTube. It might become an icon, maybe not an iconic image, but it's a great shot of a Group 1, not including the break, of INEOS with their whole team spread out across the road going uphill in a mountain echelon. It's crazy, and I love to see it. It was just a shame the coverage was so bad. Up ahead, as Benji said, Mohoric rode this whole stage. Like, I want to make a video on it of its own, how to ride the breakaway as the teammate of the stage contender, like to perfection, with the final climb coming up. Mader is the better climber than Mohoric. Mohoric pulled when Mollema was behind. He pulled on the descents because he can't go slow on the descents. He doesn't know how to, causing gaps, people to close. He would do surge micro attacks, just an annoying pace. They had a decent gap of 3 minutes, over 3 minutes, so he could play around like this, forcing Cataldo and Co to close. Meanwhile, the whole time, Mader was the protected rider. They've got Mader going back to the car, got his vest on, getting food and stuff. Mohoric pulling, keeping the gap, and then forcing others to close. That tied Mollema out. Is absolutely outstanding from Mohoric. I think the next move, Benji, was the random descent attack from Ciccone, Bardet, and Bettiol after INEOS eventually were closed. They dropped Evenepoel and Co, I think briefly, although it was tough to see where Evenepoel was, and because he was wearing a grey jacket, not the sort of, it's difficult to see where he was. But they dropped them, but then it came back again. When exactly did the trio of Bardet, Bettiol, and Ciccone move?
Well, it seemed to be on the steepest part of the descent. Looking back at the INEOS group every so often, once we had images, we noticed that the tempo was not insane down the descent. When it started being a more steady gradient and less steep in the descent, Ganna started moving to the front again and smashing those pedals. But I think that opportunity was taken by the three riders that got away. That moment where INEOS was not taking all the risks in the descent to try and get a bit of a gap, and that gap was quite solid suddenly, 40 seconds, which is relatively significant in the descent. But I was just thinking about, where does this go? Where does this go after making this move? You've got Ciccone, who's seemed to be the GC leader of Trek at this Giro. I thought it would be at the Giro preview, but then the first time trial was horrible, so it kind of threw me off, but still seems to be the GC leader. Bardet seems to be doing all right in GC as well, not taking time for stages, so seems to be focusing as well on that. And Bettiol is relatively high up in GC, or was at the start of this stage. So those three riders certainly are looking at their GC, and they've got 40 seconds on the INEOS group after a bit of a descending. Then
they had a problem. They had a big problem.
Yeah, what do you do then?
Because you're pulling against Filippo Ganna on a 3% descent. And you're not going to get a big gap, and that was the problem, and that's why their move was doomed. I didn't really like it, and then Ciccone eventually stopped pulling in the move, and I was like, well, it would have been easier this whole time if your plan was to not contribute, to just sit in the wheels with Ganna pulling you to the base of the climb. And Ciccone looked, I think it might have affected the end of this stage, Benji, which we'll get to, but considering where Ciccone finished, it would have been definitely easier doing what Bernal did than Ciccone's move. Bettiol was frustrated. And I guess Bardet, in his defense, he's trying something on a descent, maybe INEOS crash, whatever. But the breakaway had a decent gap over 2.5, 3 minutes. About 3 minutes to the peloton, 2:12, 2:15 to the trio chasing them. And Ganna just eventually clawed that back. He brought Bardet, Bettiol, and Ciccone back before the final San Giacomo climb. He then kept powering away at the base. As I said at the start, not that high gradient. I should mention, by the way, Demarchi's gone. Maglia Rosa group 8 minutes back, all over for them. So they didn't really need to chase down Bettiol before. It would have been better off to get Demarchi in the break. But that's probably not possible. Yeah. Maybe the Maglia wouldn't have been let in the break, so it's irrelevant. Ganna pacing, we have a group of 4 now in the break ahead that have split clear. Moric, Cataldo, Mollema, and Maida. Moric is basically doing all of the pulling, trying to keep the gap. So he's pulling head-to-head against Ganna with a gap of 2 minutes 20, 2 minutes 30 on this 15-kilometre, 6% climb. He pulls off after about 5 Ks. Fantastic work from him. And Mollema starts to take it up, working with Cataldo and Maida. Meanwhile, behind INEOS, still Ganna. Eventually, it's Castroviejo, Benji. But did you notice, who got dropped when Ganna was pulling? Benji was Bennett, and then Foss went back. He was causing some damage, Ganna.
Yeah, and the group was just falling apart because obviously the weather has been pretty terrible for half the stage now. People are having cold hands. You could see that from Vlasov just waving his arms around, trying to get his, the wetness from his hands a bit gone and the coldness a bit gone. And I think that a lot of people are feeling that, and therefore the group was thinning out. But I have to be honest, I think that Ganna just did the most damage of the entire INEOS terrain, and that's partially because at a certain point we saw that Castroviejo was trying to take over and he had a puncture and he was gone. So I think that does play in the cards here as well. But yeah, certainly great stuff by Ganna. MVP when it comes to INEOS on the stage, certainly, and setting things up for Bernal up there as well. We saw that INEOS was also, the Koenig was also with quite a few people there. I think it was Masnada, Almeida, and Seri. And then suddenly Seri was going to the back during a feeding zone. And
true, yes.
The biggest what the fuck moment of this entire stage happened because he was just going backwards. And you saw the red car of the commissioner on the right. And then you had the bike exchange car on the left. And it looks like from the right window of the bike exchange car, they were trying to give stuff to the commissaire car, or the other way around probably, because they got the jacket
the commissaire car, maybe, yeah.
And that jacket
everyone's dethrobing. Yeah. Everyone's taking off their jackets on this climb. It's not raining anymore at 17 degrees. Sorry, go on, Benji.
Yeah, you're right. And that makes sure that the commissaires probably have to give the shirt back, the jerseys back, the jackets back to the car of bike exchange, which means that they're riding next to each other. But they don't slow down with Seri slowing down ahead of them. So the car just literally rides into Seri. And it just proves that the person that was at the wheel was not watching ahead of him. And that's an issue. We'll go into that issue separately after the race because there's too much to the stage. Let's go. You can go.
Castroviejo begins pulling for INEOS. Ganna's pulled off or taken a rest, but Castro slows down the pace. Pretty clear because George Bennett catches back up after he'd been dropped. We subsequently discover through a close-up that Castroviejo actually has a rear wheel flat, and he'd gone back, and it looked like he'd said on the radio, "I got a rear wheel flat." It's kind of like when you're not feeling good, and you're like, "My brakes must be rubbing on this climb. I must have a rear wheel puncture." And it's like his DS said, "Jonathan, stop lying, get back on the front. You don't have a flat. You're just not feeling good." But he actually did. It was completely flat. And that's why, even if he was doing fantastic watts, he couldn't have been going very quick. So the group was swelling. It wasn't single file like when Ganna was pulling. The gap was very stable at about 2 minutes flat to the group of now Maida, Mollema, and Cataldo now all working in unison. Maida working quite a lot, looking smooth, looking very comfortable. Mollema at this point is starting to rock a bit side to side. Castroviejo eventually pulls again after Moscon pulls. Moscon was on the limit group. Everyone's moving up now. You see Soler moving up onto the wheel of Evenepoel. You see Quickstep starting to get their riders in formation. The INEOS mountain train not really able to keep the pressure on. I'm not blaming their guys. They're not the guys you'd expect to be there. You'd expect Martinez, Sivakov, who's crashed out. In years past, this sort of guys at this stage would be Poles, Port, Thomas Kwiatkowski, not Moscon at this point. So Moscon's at 5K, so expected to do a hard pull. He's not able to. And eventually INEOS allow Quickstep to begin pacing at the front of the race, which means that Evenepoel must have been feeling okay unless they were bluffing. Up ahead, Maida straight up just rides away from Cataldo and Mollema. Mollema tried to skip a turn. Cataldo said, I'm not closing the wheel, and it's one of those ones where attacks and sort of a little acceleration on a corner in the saddle, almost imperceptible, gets a 2-meter gap. The other two are like, I'm not closing it, and then he just extends it, and Maida was gone from those two who blew up. So just like on Colmian, Paris stage 7, Maida goes clear. He went clear from, I think, Paulus and Ellison, then now from Mollema and Cataldo. He's got Quickstep chasing him. They bring it down to 120, then to 105. Then it's down to 1 minute. Quickstep are looking good, but then it stays stable with Masnada pulling. He reaches his limit. Almeida begins to pull, and INEOS attack with Martinez, Benji. Were you surprised they used him in that way rather than pulling with him after Moscon?
I think that the Koenig was making clear that they were having riders enough to keep pulling, and they started pulling, and they started passing the INEOS riders, and the INEOS riders were like, yeah, getting overtaken. So I think that was the moment that they decided to change their strategy to try something different, perhaps set Martinez up so that Bernal can attack towards Martinez. And I think that's what they were planning, and I think it looked like that, but the Koenig pace was a bit too fast for that, because Masnada was honestly working really well today. And he was working in front of Almeida, but not for Almeida this time, because Almeida was 100% riding for Remco today. And God, Remco looked good. Genuinely, the second that I saw his face, I was like, okay, he's not dropping today. I truly
he looked
believe.
Okay.
No.
He looked okay.
The Belgian dream.
Mate. Well, we'll get into why I think he looked just okay. Martinez attacks, presumably to force Quickstep to up their pace, whilst Bernal can sit in to see really whether if Almeida and Co pop, maybe he gets to go over the stage. Martinez, maybe Evenepoel has to close it. Probably wouldn't be too worried. Eventually, Bernal counters. The gap is 30 seconds with about 1,800 meters to go to Maida, where he knows it's going to be the Roglic Paris stage 7 again, where the GC group are battling and close him. And it looked like that was going to happen. Maida had gone clear, big gap, but a K to go. It's down to about 24 seconds. Bernal's attacked. He brings with him Ciccone and Evenepoel, who was on his wheel quite easily, but then Bernal sits up again. So Maida goes clear again and starts to gain more seconds. But then Bernal put the hammer down again because he dropped to Vlasov. Landa's not here, obviously, but he's gotten rid of Vlasov and Hindley. Hindley was dropped ages ago, and Nibali and co.
Important
he's just
detail.
got with him Dan Martin. Yeah.
Important detail. The group that Bernal left behind had Vervaeke and Valter in it, fighting for the Maglia Rosa. Continue.
Exactly, and I didn't realize that at the time because I don't know. I just didn't realize. Anyway, Bernal keeps pulling as for quite a long time with Evenepoel and Martin and Ciccone sitting on him. If they contribute, they bring back Maida. Just like if Schachmann and Roglic had kept pulling, they would have brought back Maida as well in Paris. Or if that someone was able to attack, but Maida kept going strong to the line. Maybe not. Maybe he was fading again, but he just won this stage with Bernal coming around the corner, about a 200-meter lead on him. He benefited this time from more guys being in that GC group and them all looking at each other, and he got his first World Tour win. Not the Paris win, but he's got a Giro d'Italia stage win for Gino Maida. I'm pretty happy after picking him yesterday, and he was at pretty good odds this morning. And just fantastic to see. He's a great climber. He was on NTT last year. He showed out in the Giro last year, and then disappointment at Paris, wins the stage. Back in the GC group, Bernal sprints, takes the second place and the bonus seconds, which is pretty impressive considering that he'd been pretty much pacing, the only one pacing that group ahead of Dan Martin and Evenepoel. Ciccone in that group too, 5th, then Caruso, Martinez, Soler, Carthy at about 17 seconds after Bernal, Vlasov 10th with Yates and Valter in that group as well. What did that mean, Benji, mathematically? You just mentioned it for Attila Valter.
What does that mean? What does that mean? How dare you ask that to me? Attila Valter is in the fucking Maglia Rosa.
Yeah. I didn't realize. I didn't. So how does this happen, Benji? Can you explain? Was he in a breakaway? Explain
No.
to people who maybe haven't been following him as closely as you or me, or
So
as you.
we know that from last year in the Sestriere stage that he's a very decent climber. He got 8th on the last mountain stage without going in the breakaway. And he started this Giro a week before. He sent me a message and he said, stage 4 might not be for me yet. It's too early. I need time. And then he went in the break in stage 4 and took the white jersey. So he's lying to me. And then, well, he was close enough ahead of, for example, an Evenepoel in GC because of that stage. And he's a good climber on the steady climbs. I think that when it comes to the steeper ones, he gets in a bit more trouble, but I'm not 100% sure of that yet. Sestriere was also not the steepest one last year, so that does prove that a tiny bit. I think his biggest weakness is time trial, by the way, but as long as there's no time trial, he should stay relatively in the top 10 perhaps for now, for a bit. Let's hope that. So I'm saying that I'm glad that in the second stage he didn't decide to take 10 minutes like we said he should to go into the break and take stages.
Well, stage 4 he went in the break. So now I'm seeing how this has happened. Stage 4 he went in the break, the one Dombrowski won, and he gained nearly a minute, 57 seconds or something on Egan Bernal. So that's where this has come from. So fantastic for him. I think the first Hungarian to wear the Maglia Rosa. Yes. Friend of the podcast and very excited for the young man. We picked him pretty much. We put the mocker on him and picked him for literally every stage he did the Grand Tour last year that had a mountain in it. Okay,
maybe.
Here's the GC standings right now. Walter 11 seconds ahead of Evenepoel. Evenepoel 5 seconds ahead of Bernal in third. Vlasov in 4th on 24 seconds. Landa not there anymore. Vervaika is in 5th. He's moved down a few spots. Carthy on 38 seconds, Caruso 39 in 7th, then Ciccone, Martin, Yates. Yates, the disappointment, I think, today, Benji. The wet weather is not agreeing with him at all, Simon Yates. He's now on 49 seconds, let's say it to Evenepoel, 38 seconds to Evenepoel on GC. Not insurmountable, but he's looked second rate on the climb so far. Do you think it's just the wet weather, or do you think we're just getting Catalunya Yates, who just doesn't have it?
I don't know. It feels like it's a bit of an inconsistency today, I guess. It's not like he showed extreme weakness today, but he couldn't follow the attacks that were decisive when it comes to Bernal and so forth. So I'd say this is a loss for Simon Yates. It's a sign that he's not consistent all over, and I think it's dangerous. I have said that I don't trust his consistency since the start. And it's also one of the reasons I didn't have him as a favorite for this Giro. So he can still turn it around. It's not a decisive stage for that. It's still only stage 6 in a Grand Tour. But looking how Evenepoel came from an injury and is growing like that, and all these other competitors need a good 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes on him by the time trial at the end, then I'm very much curious where they're going to get those 2 minutes. And the only stage I can think of is if INEOS takes what they did on this plateau in the middle of the stage and does it on the Montalcino stage. If the rain is bad, then that could cause a lot of trouble for Evenepoel, I think. But that's just a guess on my end.
Bernal's he's better descender than Evenepoel, better sprint. I think just better in the rain and wet conditions. Probably better on the really steep stuff, one would think, as well, especially a combination of all of those wet and steep. But on a 15K, 6% climb in sunny conditions, Evenepoel is right there with Bernal. And with a headwind, it's difficult for Bernal to make much of a difference. Still very impressive from Bernal today. There was a headwind. No one helped him. Maybe Dan Martin and Ciccone threw away a stage win opportunity by not helping. The reason I think Evenepoel was not having good legs and was on the limit, Benji, is because if he had good legs in the last 500 meters, Bernal's been pulling the whole time. He wouldn't trust his sprint. He's not an idiot. He likes to attack early. I think he would have attacked for the bonus seconds and maybe time, but he didn't. He sat in the Bernal wheel, and I think that's because he was a bit worried about his legs.
I agree, but I think that's also the case that it's still the first week, and I think that time is on Evenepoel's side in regards to progressing through the Giro, I think. I think
I'm
that's
I'm not calling it immature.
yeah,
I'm just saying
I think it's due to
that's a very high IQ.
No, I don't think he's doing it on purpose. I think that his level might not be at the level to ride away
Okay,
from
yeah.
a Bernal, but I think that it's only gonna grow, is my expectation, because he's coming from an injury. It's his first races since his injury. So on paper he should grow, but doing 3 weeks in a row, he hasn't done either before. So that might counter that effect. So it's so curious. It's a bit of an unknown, but I seem to lean more towards I expect him to grow in the race, and that
Agree.
could be very beneficial for the last week.
That's why we said yesterday. I said yesterday, make hay while the sun is shining. If you're INEOS and Bernal,
Yeah.
yes, but we've never seen Evenepoel in 3 weeks. But maybe he rides into form. You don't know. Maybe it could go the way you don't want it to go if you're INEOS. And if he's not looking good in the first week, 30 seconds or 20 seconds gained in the first week counts just the same as 20 or 30 gained in the third week. So I like what INEOS did today. I think they then ran out of gas in the last climb, a bit of a headwind too, and there wasn't too much they can do. And maybe they're hoping for more chaos on the middle of the stage, and then that could have really, like, Evenepoel could have lost 8 minutes today, Benji.
Yep.
There's probably would have been a moment where if Ghana and INEOS were able to keep that action going and no one helped in the group behind, and he didn't have Almeida, Masnada, Seri, it could have been back in the DeMarchi group. It was possible. And I'm surprised a GC contender didn't really lose today. Hindley and Nibali lost time. Bennett as well. But yeah, a few of the topics, before we get to the few of the topics we want to talk about for the rest of this stage, I want to mention our show partner, Locol. They have a Giro code for 20% off all Locol items during the Giro for Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast listeners. The code is all caps LRCP20. Let us know. Tweet at us if you get Locol kit. We want to see if you are getting the Locol kits. Tweet at us and let us know. Let us know what you think of it. Benji and I love it. I just stocked up some cold gear for my move to Andorra on Tuesday. The wall behind me just got painted, which is why I might be a bit delirious right now. But yeah, I'm loving the Locol kit, and we love to hear your feedback on it as well. Before we get into the topics, I just want to refresh what we had, Benji. Seri crash, bike exchange. People want our opinion on that. We just had people tweeted at us. Should DSs be allowed to drive vehicles, making decisions, collecting bidons, handing out things at 70 k's an hour on a mountain, Benji? Is that really, when we're talking safety, does something need to change with what's happening, particularly late in the stages?
I think that we've been really lucky so far in that a lot of these DSs are extremely skilled at doing both at the same time, because a lot more could have happened already in the world of cycling in regards to that. And I think it was you that mentioned last year on the podcast that this should not really be the case. So you said it before the problem arrived at our doorstep here. And the problem right now is that because the bike exchange person at the wheel, likely a co-DS, was not attentive and was looking to his right. And he should not be doing that, because a rider was coming straight ahead, literally in front of him, backwards towards the car, and he rode into his back wheel. And that's a mistake. That's a huge mistake. The guy should be taken out of the race. That's it. Done.
I agree. I think he's got to go. Just, you can't have a car straight on riding over someone right in front of him. And it seemed to be that the non-driver side was handing the jacket, receiving it maybe from the commissaire's vehicle. I think the problem seems to be, Benji, these rules with the jackets and the littering means that we're seeing guys have to go back instead of they would normally jettison their jacket, maybe collect it later. You know, there's a reason why they don't have feeding in the last 20 Ks. It's not for like a competitive reason. It's a safety reason that there's no feeding in the last 20 Ks, because you don't want to have cars up in the mix with riders getting dropped. It's not safe. And especially on these narrow mountain roads. So you now have cars going up and back with riders coming back just to hand jackets off. And that's created this problem. And I don't know the exact legality of it, whether they are still allowed to throw the jackets. The riders don't appear to think they can, so maybe they need a clarification on that end. My point is, I came from it last year, and obviously I'm not a cycling lifer, I haven't grown up with it, and I don't but the DS always drove the car. It makes no sense to me that you're trying to make decisions which impact like your whole franchise future whilst you're driving a car at 80 kilometers an hour on a mountain pass when you can't even see a TV screen properly. Like, I know maybe there's 4G signal limitations. That is maybe why there's the case. But then on the Movistar doco, Benji, I saw your man Eusebio is in a cafe on the phone to the car the whole time, watching it on TV. So there must be a case where they can sometimes have phone signal to the car. So maybe that's the answer: phone signal to the car, and then they need the radio though. They need the team radio. It has to be quite proximate to the riders for that to work. But maybe they can have someone watching on TV properly, monitoring, making decisions to feed to the car. So I don't think that's number one. But that doesn't really rule out the safety thing. So yeah, I don't think the driver should really be responsible for handing things in and out. But then what if the rider comes on that side? I don't know. Maybe someone has more insight into it, but I think the driver of the vehicles need to have less responsibility and not be doing as much. Personally, if guys aren't allowed to super tuck, then drivers of vehicles on the course shouldn't be allowed to do 17 things at once. Seems pretty straightforward to me. Anything else, Benji, before we get into roasting rye?
I think I agree on this, and I think that one of the things I would like to add is that, of course, there are some technical limitations towards the signal that is being sent between the car and the rider, for example, but I think that there's things upcoming that might change. I don't know how much implementation of 5G might influence something like this and how that will influence the way that races work. But yeah, a lot of countries are not exactly.
Maybe they can get Rye. They can contract Rye to implement whatever technical solution they have. Benji, they seem to be pretty good with broadcast signals. I mean, we didn't mention it on the other stage that it rained, but it is unacceptable that you have the Giro d'Italia, the second biggest Grand Tour, the second biggest race in the world, having significant and extended dropouts during coverage when just the slightest bit of rain hits. What the fuck is going on? Can they get Rye? World Championships last year, the UCI did not have Rye as the host broadcaster. They used, I think, VRT, correct me if I'm wrong, Benji. And there's a reason for that. It's because Rye, whatever technology they're using or systems, they do not seem to be reliable. It's going to rain in early May in Italy when you're going to these mountainous places. And to just say it's raining, what do you expect us to do with the coverage? It's not good enough. The broadcasters are paying a lot of money for these rights. They are scheduling it, and people are wanting to watch the race. And it was an exciting part of the stage we missed today. And they just simply they can't deliver a clean, reliable feed. And that just seems. I said it the other day, but if I'm the broadcasters, Benji, I'm hitting them up with. Here's what our fee was for the Giro this year. We're going to knock a little bit off that because. We had subscribers not very happy because remember Benji.
Yep.
RCS don't sell the feed to free to air generally. They sell free to air to Rye, but it's on GCN Race Pass, paywalled, and then they sub-licensed it to the SPS, so it is free to air in Australia, but it's generally paywalled, I think. What about in Belgium? Is it behind a paywall?
Well, it's
is it on Eurosport?
So it's on Eurosport on TV, but next to that, it's also on.
That's cable. That's cable, right? That's not free to air.
That's indeed correct. And
so people are paying. People are paying money to watch this to these subscription services. So that's not good for those services if they're having dropouts. Having to explain why that's happening. Sorry, go on, Benji.
Yeah. Additionally, I do also want to give a little sneer to how Eurosport was handled in the Benelux today, because for about 2 hours, next to the coverage being pretty terrible when it comes to Rye as well, the Eurosport thing, there was some outage somewhere, and for 2 hours straight, we were watching gray screen. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people did so, because I saw a lot of people on Twitter being annoyed by it. Then they ended up putting the race on Periscope, which I found really funny, because if you have to go that far to put something on Periscope for people to watch on the internet, for people that are watching on the TV, they're never going to watch Periscope. That is not the audience. That is now watching a gray screen. Those don't know what Periscope is.
I don't know what Periscope is.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hopefully it gets fixed, and well, it's not going to get fixed because they need to do broad sweeping technological improvements. Tomorrow's stage from Notaresco to Termoli, no GC action, one would think, 182 kilometers long, with the finish being a slight uphill drag. The last K is still nagging uphill, it seems. The second to last K is maybe 2-3%. The middle of the stage is where it's a little bit more interesting. With 56 Ks done, they do a 4.7 K 6% climb. Then there's some rolling hills, 2 Ks 5%, 1.5 Ks 5%, 2 Ks 5.5%. Then another 1,200 meters at 5%. Which Ewan are we going to see, Benji? Surely he can get himself over these climbs. I think Nizzolo will be fine. I know he wasn't on stage 3. I think all the others will be fine. What about Ewan and Groenewegen and Merlier? Do Bora try and spice it up that early, Benji? Because it's 90 Ks to the finish from the last main climb.
Yeah, I don't think that is really going to do it, honestly. The only steep climb on this entire stage for me is that Chieti climb, and that's way too early. But I do want to note that in the last section, it's a bit of an uphill sprint, which means that changes things for me. That changes things for me in the sense that I think that it might be steep enough to put the peloton on a bit more of a line in the final. And we know that is caused by usually corners or roundabouts and so forth, but a small uphill section can do so as well in the last 4 kilometers. And we saw that Bora was trying to use that a lot in Catalonia, if I recall correctly. This is going to be not as easy because a lot of teams are going to be prepared for this one. There's a lot of better sprinters here than in Catalonia, for certain. I don't really know who I went for when I said it last time.
I'm going for Nizzolo.
I hope he wins. Second twice already in sprints. The man has no luck. At this point, I said it on Twitter, at this point, it's exactly the same thing like DiCaprio with winning an Oscar. It took so long, and the moment that it happens, the entire world will celebrate. And
he's
let's hope it's tomorrow. I'm just going to say him as well, just because I support the idea of Nizzolo winning a flat stage. But I think that the chance of Ewan having a good position again, I'm not sure it's that high, which means that I'm not overly certain that he's going to be in a position to sprint for it again, but I hope he will. I guess
the thing is, if Bora drop Ewan, it's not just Bora that should help. Quebecer and Cofidis should help too.
Are they going to pace that long? Nah.
What, 6? What? So what, you're going to have 5 guys rotating, just the guys that aren't even in their final lead out, with Ewan just being pulled by the Boist 30 seconds behind? I think they might. And then they just break Ewan. They've done it. It's been done before.
Yeah, that's true. I think
But, yeah. Ewan is good on these finishes, though, these sort of uphill draggy ones. He can be pretty nasty.
Yeah. I'm actually not going to say Nizzolo. I'm going to say that Milano will finally have a great lead out and Gaviria will win.
Okay, interesting. He was climbing very well.
Yeah.
I'm worried about Tirreno Adriatico. I know he was a bit unwell, but there was the Gualdo Tadino stage that MVDP won.
Mm-hmm.
There was a climb, the Poggio della Croce, and I think Ewan got dropped on there. 4.5 K, 7.5%, a little bit closer to the finish and then uphill drag, but yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say. I can't say Ewan because I just think Nizzolo is more consistent. He has been the most consistent sprinter, maybe after Viviani. So I expect them to beat Sagan. If Merlier and Ewan are there fresh, they should be concerned, but I can't have confidence that they'll be there fresh. But Merlier, he's climbing better than Ewan, right, Benji? Surely Merlier, you don't think he's good on this sort of uphill drag?
Yeah, I'd say that he should be good, but it should fit him, but it's hard.
There's something about his consistency. Something about he's just, anyway, Gaviria and Viviani and Nizzolo are just more consistent, more experienced in those sprints. What about the break, Benji? Tucker van der Hoorn style again, or it's just not enough in the final 90 Ks? They'll be able to get organised, one would think.
Yeah, I think that in general, there's not as many flat stages in this Giro, and they need to use every single one if they want to win sprints. So that's why I think that Thomas Verheyen will be riding at the front of the peloton until the climb starts, and then we'll see what Bora does and what that influences. But I don't think the peloton is going to have at least more than I don't think they'll give 6 or so minutes to the breakaway tomorrow, personally.
An interesting stage that I'll be watching closely. It's a really good type of sprint stage where you should be a bit more enthralled than on stage 5. But we hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you want to give us a like down below on the YouTube channel, if you're watching there, it helps out a lot, as well as giving us a review on podcast players. We appreciate all your support. We hope you're enjoying the podcast. The Giro is really warming up, as well as I feel like I'm in a bit of a groove now. I feel like the made pick are feeling a bit hotter now, Benji. I was getting a little bit roasted too much by people from my Velo Games team, but the Velo, it's on the rise now. All right, Ewan winning yesterday, made it today. Life is good, but for how long? Luckily, I'm a humble person that never brags. That's where we'll end today's podcast. See you tomorrow. Ciao.